I made these holiday winter cards back in January so that I could be super prepared for this winter holiday season. And now that I'm getting ready to send them out, I hate them. Okay, maybe hate's a strong word, but I really am not in love with them. I even made a video on it, a whole video. So if you saw that video, then you know that I wasn't happy with the first warm wishes that I carved. It just didn't look right, and so I carved another one. But here I am, 11 months later, looking at the second one that I carved, thinking, I don't like this one either. So now what? I went through this whole process of making the stamps and the cards, and they're not doing it for me. Look, carving letters and numbers is very tricky. Quite frankly, I'm not very good at it, but I keep trying, and I allow my imperfections to just be what they're gonna be. But if you're not into carving letters or numbers or sentiments, stay to the end of the video and I'll show you a little hack on how you can take this card design and make it something really super cute with just a store-bought stamp. See, it's not the card that I don't like. I think actually the card design itself is charming and it has this elegance to it, but it is the sentiment. So it looks too chunky, it looks too harsh, I think, but I think I can fix it. So when you're not sure what to do with a project that isn't quite up to the level of par that you had in mind, here's a tip for you. In some cases, not always, more is better. And I think that's what I'm gonna do here. What I'm gonna use are these gorgeous handmade metallic watercolor paints. I get them on Etsy from a shop called IUILE? I'm not sure. I'll leave a link below. The name of the shop owner is Jeannie, and I've been buying her paints for a while and I love them. I actually used those paints in the original video, so if you saw the video, you know what I'm talking about. And if you want to see the video, again, the link is below. Using these watercolors, and because the sparkle is sort of ubiquitous, it gets at a lot of places. I keep my paints, my brushes, my water cup confined on a little white enamel tray so that I can control it. I don't want to mix these paints in with my gouache because I like my flat colors and I like my sparkle colors, and if I want them to mix, I do it methodically. I don't just sort of haphazardly let the paints come into contact with each other. And then when I go to empty my water, I give it a stir, and then I will pour the water through a coffee filter with a cone-shaped filter with a paper filter. Is that right? You know what I mean, this. And then when the cup is empty, I take a tissue and I wipe out the extra glitter, extra sparkle, and I toss that away, and then my water cup is fresh and ready to go for the next session of sparkly paints. It's just sort of a good way to kind of keep it a little bit in control. So I prepared this paint, and I'll leave the colors below because I don't have them on me right now. So I'll leave a description of the colors that I used below. I prepared the paint in a little palette so that I could get the right consistency of paint and water. So the consistency I was looking for was to be able to use this with a dip pen. I thought it'd be perfect to highlight the letters with the little shimmery accents, and it will bring them to life. And I also accented some of the little holly leaves, not all of them, but just enough to sort of unify the design. One of the other things that I did was just to add some extra berries, and I used this silver shimmery color, which I think just made it look a little bit like mistletoe. It just sort of brought it to life. It just turned out to be the perfect little accent to put on this design. Now, this dip pen that I'm using is a Brause Steno nib, and I'll leave a link for it below. I've used a lot of nibs, and this one is particularly super easy to use. I don't have any issues with it skipping or not flowing properly, and if you've used a dip pen, you know what I'm talking about. So this is one you should definitely check out. And also, I gotta tell you this random tip I discovered with dip pens. The nibs. When you first buy them, you need to clean off the oil that is coated on the nib. They do that when they make them so that they don't rust. One of the things you can use is alcohol. Another thing that I hear a lot, people say to spit on them. Your spit apparently is acidic and it works really well. So speaking from experience, that's what I did, and this nib is perfect. I think this is going to be the one I'm going to be using for a while. Again, the link will be below. So make sure that your paint is the right consistency. If it has too much water, when you use it on a non-watercolor paper surface, such as these envelopes, the water will seep beyond the paint, and this is what I'm talking about. Just double check it and you should be fine. As with most things that I'm doing, I usually have some sort of a scrap piece of paper where I can test out the paint, the ink, the stamp, whatever it is. I use my 4x6 index cards that I have on hand at all times. Those are my favorite, so that I can test my dip pen. So I stamped it out, and then I just used my dip pen on that little index card before I actually started practicing with the metallic paint on my pre-made cards. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I just love playing with these paints. They can get quite addictive. I just get lost in this beautiful sparkly paint experience. It's a lot of fun. Okay, I'm going to tell you how, if you want to use a store-bought stamp for your sentiment, it's just a really great way to make sure that you get the design that you want. Less stress, less fuss, and it looks really nice. But again, do a test stamp, and you can see the first one that I did here, it didn't turn out so great. I didn't have the stamp inked up very well, and that particular ink pad wasn't full of ink. You've probably heard me say before, when you buy an ink pad, buy the re-inker, because an ink pad can only get you so far, and there's nothing more useless than a dry ink pad. In this particular case, I did not have the re-inker, but I did have another ink pad that was a little bit wetter, so I used that one. And this is a perfect example of why stamping it out on a scratch piece of paper is always a good idea before you make the actual impression. Listen, if you want to see how these cards originally started, watch this video here. And this is YouTube. The subscribe thing, it kind of helps me out, so I'll see you in the next video.